Hello dear listener, TW here. It's time to move on to Frankenstein, another one of the big Hollywood monsters. Part 1, we're going to be talking about Universal films, as in the Universal films from the 1930s, Mary Shelley's original text, and Part 2 is going to be focusing more on later adaptations, including the recent Netflix version from Guillermo del Toro. Just a quick correction for this part. When I'm referencing some of the Universal films, I get a couple of the names mixed up. Frankenstein meets the Wolfman and the Ghost of Frankenstein. I muddle up some of the names there, but the main message is basically fine when we're talking about Bela Lugosi and his roles. Enjoy the conversation, and part 2 will be out soon. Spoilers ahead. Okay, Sam, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much.
This was not planned.
No, not at all.
Do you realise, quick little history here, do you realise that it was almost a year ago, well, the very, very start of the year, that we did our first episode, the pilot episode, the inaugural, the absolute original, the Nosferatu episode, Series 0, Episode 1, and then it was somewhere in the middle of this year that we recorded the first proper episode, so to speak, Series 1, Episode 1, where we talked mockumentaries.
Yeah.
And at the time, the plan was I was going to knock out 6 quick episodes and go Series 1 done. Yet here we are at the end of the year. Yeah, it was a case of, I'll try and get one episode from each guest for the series and move on. Timing didn't quite work out that way. So instead of waiting for opportune times and then having a Series 2 at some logical time, it's all arbitrary. We're all making up rules, so it's fine.
Yeah.
So here we are. We've returned because something has inspired us. What film has come out recently to inspire this discussion, Sam?
Well, that would be a new film on Netflix. Guillermo del Toro's, please, I apologise if I didn't say his name correctly. Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein.
Yes, Frankenstein. We're both, well, the fact that we did an episode on Nosferatu, I don't think it'll be too big a leap to say we're fans of Frankenstein. I suppose the original text and, shall we say, some of the adaptations. So it seemed a logical time to go, well, let's have a bit of a chat. So with the Nosferatu, we talked about 3 films, and it was relatively straightforward to focus on 3. The original, the recent, at that time, Robert Edgar's remake, new adaptation, shall we say, and versus the 70s remake. Frankenstein's not that easy. I saw a statistic saying Frankenstein's, the monster or the creature, has been in several hundred films, which is not the same as saying there's been several hundred adaptations, because sometimes the monster is just plucked out and thrown somewhere else.
Yeah.
But I think it's fair to say that whilst Nosferatu is easy to point at 3 films and go, those are 3 that you can kind of pin back to the original text, I don't think we can do that as easily with Frankenstein.
No, I don't think we can, but it's what I find interesting. It is a character that keeps on coming back. And if we look at the, Universal 1930s film directed by James Whale, that is probably one of the most iconic monsters in cinema history.
Yes.
I'm sure if we showed that image of Boris Karloff as Frankenstein's monster,
the neck bolts,
even though it was in black and white, we know his skin was green.
Yes.
We show that to anyone, they will know exactly what it is.
Yeah, we talked about this actually. You wouldn't have heard this, but Nate and I, speaking of returning guests, Nate and I did an episode. We talked about the Predator franchise, which is not quite alive to the outside world yet as we record, but it will be by the time this goes out. And we talked about the concept of the Predator, among others, Alien and so on, being the 80s versions. If you grew up in the 80s and early 90s, we had this incredible era of these famous monsters that were being made.
Yeah.
And the only other time, my contention in that episode is there's only been 2 times in cinema history where you had a high density, high frequency of really transcendent, iconic creatures that were created. So the idea that we had Giger's design, the Predator, Terminator, and then you have Jason Voorhees and all of these 80s slasher monsters.
Freddy Krueger.
Yeah, one of the most iconic.
Yeah.
The fact that you had about 5 of those within about 3 or 4 years, I think it was, The only other time in history was, if you go back to 1931, 31 gave us Bela Lugosi as Dracula. It gave us Boris Karloff as Frankenstein's monster. And within 12 months, we also had Boris Karloff as the Mummy, the original, the first incarnation. We also had the Invisible Man.
We had Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
So that hair, that lightning bolt in the hair, that look is just as iconic, almost as iconic as Boris Karloff.
Yeah, well, as we record now, my other series, a little bit of cross-promotion here, my One Flick at a Time, the Bride of Frankenstein episode came out recently, and in that episode I did mention the idea that the images that James Whale created in that film, arguably as iconic as the original film. I mean, the fact that you had, Marge Simpson at a Halloween episode dressing up as the bride some 70 years later, and we all knew, even as kids, we went, oh yeah, we know what that is. It's you cannot overstate the significance of those films. So that's a logical place to start, I suppose.
I was going to say another one we should mention from the 30s was King Kong.
Oh yeah, and of course, yes,
and the Wolfman, and
well, the Wolfman proper wasn't until 41. He was second wave. Although there were werewolf movies before that, but they just weren't as iconic. So, but as far as talking of ones that are go well beyond their genre and well beyond their time, yes, by coincidence, I actually started rewatching that just today, in fact, because that's going to be sneak peek. That's going to be my 1941 episode when I get to that. Which won't be out till next year, but anyway.
I should also mention again in the 80s you had the classic American Werewolf in London. Which John Landis' film is just...
so the late 70s, early to mid-80s was really an incredible time for monster creation. So I lament less the fact that I missed the 30s, because I've got to remember, well, I was there, maybe not old enough to have seen these films on the big screen, but, being conscious of them in the late 80s and 90s, to be there for such an iconic time in horror history, film history, is nice to be... somewhat part of that first time around. So I guess let's jump back a little. Now we should just for some historical context. As iconic as James Whale's Frankenstein was, it wasn't the first attempt. Have you seen the original footage of Frankenstein from Thomas Edison's?
I've seen clips of it. I've not seen the full thing.
Yeah, well, it is partially lost, but you can see all that remains. It used to be floating around on YouTube. I'm not sure it still is. But that was very, very early. That was very much, let's do a stage play and just plonk the camera down and record it, which a lot of films were at the time, of course. The idea that you were dynamic with the camera, for example, was still a few years away, and it was common, of course, by the 20s, but it certainly wasn't in the early 1910s or... whatnot.
I thought he actually did that before the turn of the century, but you probably need to correct me on that one. Fact check me on that one.
My memory says something like 1910, but that's going off the top of my head, so I can fact check that.
And when was the story of the Kelly Gang done? Sorry, I'm going on a tangent here. Film history.
1906 or 9 or something like that. It was the first feature film with a full narrative.
Made in Australia, by the way.
Yes, Australian. The first
in Heidelberg, in sort of now, sort of inner Melbourne.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go.
So the Heidelberg Artist Trail. We had a whole lot of artists around that time, like Arthur Streeton and people like that. You also had the story of the Kelly Gang being shot there.
Well, there you go. There you go. The extra tidbits here. Right, so James Whale comes around, and Universal was not yet known for being big on horror. I'm doing a bit of reading about it at the moment, actually, and basically Carl Laemmle, who made Universal and built Universal City, built it from the ground up, had recently, as in 1928, he handed over production to his son, to Carl Laemmle Jr. So the idea that Junior was only in charge for a couple of years, and then he said, let's do all of these things. Dracula, Frankenstein, the Mummy. It was all Junior who did it. Although he would make some pretty botched decisions, and that would ultimately bury the company a few years later. Nevertheless, so it was his idea. Let's buy the rights to these novels, because of course all of these early ones were based on novels.
Yep.
And in the same year we get Dracula and Frankenstein. Dracula comes out, breaks records, it's huge. Frankenstein is out in the same year, and it even beats Dracula by according to the box office. And it kind of redefines the company a little bit. So Universal were already they weren't trying to be the A studio. They were trying to be consistent with quality, but they weren't trying to create, nothing but A tier. And you talk about the prime time of Hollywood, someone like, we have all the biggest stars and all this. That wasn't Universal. They were happy to be in the B zone, although they would make some A pictures as well, for sure.
Yeah. Or, in the case of Frankenstein, B pictures that turned into A pictures.
Yeah. Pretty much. I mean, it surprised even them, frankly. The result was surprising to them. So, but this kind of became the thing. They just went, oh, horror. Yes, absolutely. And surprisingly, which we'll get to in a moment, the sequels didn't come out too quickly, because the first Dracula and Frankenstein sequel weren't until 35 and 36. So there were about 4 years gap. But in the meantime, they were doing The Mummy, The Invisible Man, among others. So, but anyway, let's get into it. So James Whale's Frankenstein. To be honest, we probably need to talk about it and Bride of Frankenstein together, because the way I frame it is both of those films are a complete adaptation of Mary Shelley's novel. Not a faithful adaptation, but they function as a complete adaptation, because the first film, keeping in mind feature films only went for about an hour at this stage. Frankenstein went for about 70 minutes, I believe. And they were making no attempt to do the entire novel. They take the first chunk of it, and if you just watch this, you'd be forgiven for thinking that the novel is quite brief. So I guess if we take a step back and talk about the two films as films, but also as adaptations, it probably makes sense to talk about the novel a little bit. How are they as adaptations to you?
Okay, I think they're interpretations. So the novel really goes into his Victor Frankenstein's developing of the monster, his motivations. It goes a lot into his head. He's telling his story, and that sort of goes what led him to build the monster, make the monster, and then the consequences afterwards.
It bears mentioning that a lot of that is excised, because in the novel, as in some adaptations, he is basically recounting his experiences to somebody, because keeping in mind this is a 19th century novel, and novels as we know them today didn't exist. So this idea of how do you make a novel? Well, you don't just tell the story, you have to have it. It's like a diary, like Bram Stoker's Dracula is a lost diary that's been picked up.
Or several, I think.
So, it's been a while since I've read it, to be honest. And to be honest, isn't very good reading these days. I think Shelley's novel is far more readable and engaging.
But then again, look at the people that she was sort of hanging out with at the time. Percy Shelley and Lord Byron, they are literary giants in themselves.
That's right. Yeah, so the idea that she's surrounded by these men who were established as writers, and it's worth mentioning, of course, she couldn't publish in her own name originally.
It doesn't surprise me, but I didn't actually know that properly.
I'm not sure when it was revealed what her identity was. I can't recall all of that. But the idea that you had her father, husband, Lord Byron, all these people who, I suppose, put her in the right circles, and no doubt inspired, and she really made it her own. But yes, the idea that it is effectively a recount of his experiences, as you say, it's a lot more about him, as in Victor. Whereas The James Whale version, I would suggest, is quite light on, because it really starts with them going, he's been locked in his laboratory for so long. We'll go investigate. And the monster is up and moving around. I can't even remember now, but quite quickly.
Yeah.
Within the first act.
Yeah.
So they're not mucking around.
No, they're not.
Whereas the creation of the creature is not. The start of the novel is about Victor and establishing who he is.
Yeah.
But that makes sense. I mean, features are only going to go, unless you're making an epic which went for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Your feature's going to go for an hour or so. You're going to get the monster on screen pretty quickly.
Yeah. And that's also one of the most iconic moments in the film is, Victor Frankenstein hooking up the lightning.
Yeah.
Or the machine, and then the lightning strikes and he goes, "It's alive!"
Yes. Yeah. And
love that moment.
To the point that it's been replicated.
Yeah.
It's probably the first example I can think of. You know how now every single Star Wars movie has to say one of those lines, and every single Terminator movie has to say, "Come with me if you want to live." I feel like the first example of that was "It's Alive," because he says it in Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And it's turned up in some form or another in basically, well, let's say most versions.
Well, it's become a cliche, obviously.
It has. Well, the fact that even Young Frankenstein even references it. Son of Frankenstein. It's very much channeling that energy as well. You got the next generation coming in, and that's what Gene Wilder's character was.
Yeah.
Basil Rathbone starring as the son, and you have the idea that you have Igor the Hunchback. It actually comes from that film. That's Bela Lugosi as Igor doing arguably his best performance, which I know is a big call.
That is a very big call.
But it is at least close to his Dracula performance, and it is really, really good. It is really, really good. It's worth revisiting that film. It's one of the few times where, of all the Universal franchises, I would say Frankenstein is by far and away the most consistent. The fact that trilogy, the third film, is a very worthy successor.
Okay.
Whereas with Dracula, by the time you get to the third film, you've got Son of Dracula starring Lon Chaney Jr., who's horribly miscast, and it doesn't work. And even as much as I love The Wolfman, the sequels were put them in with Frankenstein, the monster, everything else, and mash things together. So the three Frankenstein, that trilogy, shall we say, you got Boris Karloff there 3 times as a monster. So his last time was in 1939. Overall, a good trilogy, but the third film is no longer an adaptation of the original work. I've got a contention for you, and I want to see what you think.
Yeah.
I had a university lecturer, a doctor of something or other, and he said, we were talking about the text, and we actually read Mary Shelley's novel. And he said that the Universal films were bad adaptations. And because the idea is, the novel, the monsters has become articulate and intelligent, and it's one of the themes of the novel, of course, that the monster in some ways becomes more human than the creator. Yeah. Until his world is thrown into disarray, and then he says, "Fine, you want me to be a monster? I will. I'll destroy everything you love." Because he says to Victor, "Make me a bride, make me a mate. I'll leave you alone. I'll leave civilized society," whatever that qualifies as in the 1800s, "and I just want love. Give me someone I can love." And at first Victor says yes, but then he realizes, I've gone too far, I must renege. Yeah. And as a result, that brings about the downfall. So even though he does the so-called right thing by saying, I can no longer play God, I need to take a step back, he's still punished for his hubris from creating the first monster.
Thus the subtitle, The Modern Prometheus.
Yeah, that's right. The idea that he's playing in the realm of gods, effectively. And it's one of the themes of the novel. Yeah. The Bride of Frankenstein, obviously they understand, no, you give the audience the bride. Yeah. So he actually creates it. And I was very surprised, of course, because I just grew up thinking, well, of course he makes the bride. So when I read the novel as an adult, I'm quite surprised that he says no, because pop culture has told me that of course there's a bride because of this film. Yeah. Therefore, you completely miss the point of the novel, says this lecturer. Here's my contention. I think it works as simply a different version because the original novel has Victor. He's the one saying, no, I won't make this second creature. I got to draw the line. I realised my mistake, even though it's too late to fully correct it.
Yeah.
Here, what happens in The Bride of Frankenstein, I know we're jumping ahead, but that's all right. In The Bride of Frankenstein, the monster, the creature, shall we say, the creature gets his bride, and the bride rejects him. The bride says, no, I can't be with you. Not literally, she just screams at him and tries to run away. The creature, Boris Karloff, as the creature, says, oh, we've gone too far, this was a mistake. He tells Victor, who they've curiously renamed in the films Henry, it was actually the name of the friend. Anyway, functionally Victor, I'm just going to call him Victor. He says to Victor and his new bride, you go, we stay. And the creature pulls the lever, which destroys him and Dr. Pretorius, who is a construct of the film, not from the novel.
Yeah.
So the fact that the monster realises that this has gone too far, I think is a really interesting take. And does it miss the point of the original? No, because it's doing the same. It's making the same message. It's just that the point is coming from a different character. And the idea that you give the creature more agency, I think that's a really interesting take.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I agree with you, actually. I think, yes, if you were just looking at the first film, yes, that's missing the point.
Absolutely, yeah.
But if you look at the two films together, then, yes, they not only, make the point, they actually take it further.
Yeah, and tell it from a different point of view.
Yeah.
So, if you're talking about... I mean, you can absolutely talk about the original film as a film. But if you're talking about adaptation, you have to talk about the two together because it's just incomplete. The idea that the creature talks, in the James Whale version, he's not especially articulate. Whereas in the novel, he's fully articulate.
Yeah.
Karloff's version is... What do you call it? He's sort of stunted, I suppose.
Yeah, well, he's learning.
Yeah.
So that's the whole scene of the blind man.
Yes.
Then...
We definitely, when we get to Del Toro's version, we definitely need to talk about the differences there. It's interesting.
So, again, and I think we're going to have to go to Young Frankenstein because that's just brilliant, that scene.
Sure.
And so was the girl by the lake.
Yeah.
Which is missing from Del Toro's, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, that's worth mentioning. So the original version had, in various places, a lot of it was cut out, one of which is where he's learning. He's absolutely learning.
Yeah.
So the idea that you put flowers on the water and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So, well, naturally, he's having fun with this girl. So he'll put her in the water, but she can't swim and she drowns. Yeah. And then you have the man, that scene was excised and all you saw in the original was the father. Right, it's a really powerful scene, actually. The celebrations gradually diminish as they see this man walking into town. Just, he's shut down. He's not crying, he's not weeping, he's just...
Yeah.
He's dead inside. He's in shock carrying his dead daughter's body, which is quite shocking in its own way.
It is.
But thankfully that scene was found and has been reattached, so we do see the drowning of the girl take place. And incidentally, at the start of Bride of Frankenstein, they bring him back, the father, just to be killed off by the monster. You go, geez, that seemed needlessly cruel. There seems to be a certain cruelty to the sequel. Which I find a little interesting. The idea that he wants to go in and make sure the monster's dead because it killed my daughter, and then bang, so he gets killed as well. And I go, there's a very low body count in the film. Yet, so let's kill this poor fella. And I go, gee, I get a real sense that Whale was, I don't know, a little bit angry. I mean, he was a bit of an outsider of Hollywood.
He was, yeah.
The fact that he was openly gay didn't help. No. And he didn't want to direct Bride of Frankenstein.
Okay, I didn't know that.
No, but you wouldn't know it looking at the film. It is incredibly well shot. It's more effective. It's more technically proficient and effective than the 31, the original version. It's very noticeable. If you watch them as a double feature, which they absolutely work as a double feature, despite a weird epilogue from the first film that's strangely thrown in there, just to say he landed on the blade of the windmill and clearly broke his spine, but don't worry, Victor's are fine, and they just say cheers at the end of the first film, and then you cut back to the Bride of Frankenstein where they're going, oh yeah, no, he's dead, we better bring his body in. So you're just going to have to ignore it. If you just ignore that epilogue, they work as a double feature, but it's very noticeable. The production values go up, the skill of the director, I believe, is improved. Yeah, but there's strong motifs. There's the monster gets tied to a cross. They want to crucify him effectively. There's a lot of statements.
So again, that's going back to Prometheus.
Yeah.
So he was in Greek mythology a sort of Christ-like character.
Yeah.
As far as my understanding is.
Yeah. Well, he was. He gave humans fire.
Yeah.
And
paid the consequences for that.
Yeah, and still is today, if you believe the myth.
Yeah.
Because he's immortal, so he gets his liver pecked out every day.
Yeah.
And then he reforms and then gets pecked out the next day.
Yeah.
Pretty brutal.
And tedious.
You'd be over. What, again? The point of the novel doesn't shine through entirely within these as adaptations, but if we park that as films, how do they hold up? What do they do? What do they do well?
Okay, the imagery. So they've taken idea of the monster and just crystallized it. And crystallized it so well that, again, the monster is one of the most iconic images in horror. I actually think they've really told the story of the creator's creation turning against him. So it's almost like, I'm not a parent, but I imagine what a lot of parents might feel as their children growing up and becoming teenagers.
Yeah.
So
the fact that he creates the creature and loses control almost on the same day, basically.
Yeah.
So that didn't go. It's kind of like, I created this thing. Oh, now what?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't think that through.
Yeah. And again, the hubris.
Yeah.
And again, that goes back to another Greek myth, which is Pygmalion. So the story of an artist who creates a sculpture so beautiful that he falls in love with it, and then prays to Aphrodite, and she makes it human, and he eventually sort of lives happily ever after with this sculpture. Again, we see this theme again with the Jewish golem, in Prague, which was built by the rabbi to protect the Jewish people of Prague.
Yep.
I don't know the full story, but I think it does
I know fragments.
Yeah. But I think it does sort of go berserk at some point.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
I know, for example, when a little bit of background, the idea that you had, was it Todd Browning, I want to say? Todd Browning was going to... No, a different director was going to do the first Frankenstein.
Yeah. And
it was going to star Bela Lugosi as the monster. And when the director was ousted, James Whale came in and said, no, I want Karloff. But also the script was changed. So they talk about Bela Lugosi rejecting the monster was the biggest mistake of his career. Yeah, well, the script that he rejected was different. He was just a lumbering monster. There was no humanity to him. Karloff brought the humanity to the creature. But supposedly Bela Lugosi made the makeup himself, and he was doing a golem-like telling. And unfortunately that screen test has lost to time, which is tragic.
That is tragic.
But it was described as very much a golem-like thing, and he was a lumbering monster. So it is ironic that Bela Lugosi comes back as Frankenstein's monster about a decade later in, can't remember which one it is, Ghost of Frankenstein, I think it is.
Okay.
Because the story goes, he is Igor, as previously mentioned in 1939's film, and then he returns in The Wolfman Meets the Frankenstein. The Wolfman Meets Frankenstein. By that they mean the monster, but whatever.
Yeah.
And then in that version he plays Igor again, but he then transplants the brain of himself, Igor, into the monster, and therefore in the next movie, Ghost of Frankenstein, Bela Lugosi plays. He is Igor's brain inside the monster, so it's him with the makeup on. Yeah. But he's supposed to be Igor, and the tragedy is, in post-production, they decided to take him back to being a mute monster. So they edit it, and the point is, at the end of the previous movie, he said, I am Igor, I have this body, I can do whatever I want. But because the brain transplant didn't quite work, he went blind. So in the next movie, he's stumbling around blind, but then they cut all his dialogue. So it just looks like he's a very bad actor. And And I go, but he's actually supposed to be the blind Igor version. So when you watch that film, he's being led around because he can't see. So everyone goes, Lugosi's not a good actor. It's like, no, they cut out. You can see him. You can see his lip. You can see his lips moving in some shots. So it was a very weird lineage, but it is ironic that he was supposed to be the original monster and he became it, and then it got sort of thrown in his face.
No, that's a real shame because Lugosi, when he was good, he was great.
Yeah, he was not consistent and didn't have much range.
No.
But when you're right, when he was in the right roles with the right director, truly iconic, one of the greats. But Karloff had fantastic range. The fact that he could make the creature sympathetic.
Yeah.
The idea that he's very much childlike in both the James Whale films.
Yeah.
And the third film too, incidentally. He's the hand gestures he has, where he's just he just wants help. He's a newborn basically. But then he gets shunned, and then Victor's again. I'll just keep calling him Victor.
Yeah.
His offsider, played by Dwight Fry, who was in Dracula as Renfield, and here he is. Sort of the hunchback assistant, not the iconic Igor that we know, and he's tormenting the monster and all this, and the poor creature. Yeah. He's brand new, and he's just being tormented by Fritz, I think the character's name is. And
well, you don't want to know what happens in Flesh for Frankenstein by Paul Morrissey, who was working with Andy Warhol.
Oh, right.
And stars Udo Kier.
Yeah, well, and Andy Warhol, say no more, I guess.
Yeah, well, these films were, at the,
on the periphery of.
On the periphery, but again, what happens to the monsters in that is far worse than anything that happens to the monsters previously.
I would imagine. Keeping in mind, the 30s are still relatively tame. If you look at these two films now, they, like all films, I would argue, from that era, none of them are shock you to your core horrifying.
No.
They're close to a century old. They just don't carry the same weight anymore.
Yeah.
But they are atmospheric. They are moving at times.
Yeah, definitely.
They are affecting. The most affecting moments, like I said, the father bringing his daughter in who's been drowned. The idea that the monster is struggling to learn and just wants to. And he becomes aggressive because the world is aggressive to him. Definitely a thing from the novel.
Yep.
And just I keep going beyond the confines of the parameters here, but I can't help but mention the death of Igor in Bela Lugosi's Igor in Son of Frankenstein, and in that film they go back to the creature not speaking. Just for whatever reason, the director's choice. There's no in-canon decision. And he gives this cry because Igor is the only friend that he knows at this point, even though Igor was evil, but he doesn't know. And when Igor dies, brought back for the sequel, whatever, he lets out this cry, this primal, childlike cry, and it's the sort of stuff that only Karloff could have done, and it gives a real humanity.
Yeah.
Intentionally so, and again from that all comes from the novel. The idea that this thing that has no soul, that's an important thing in a very very Christian society. The fact that this thing was created by man, not God, therefore has no soul, does not deserve our sympathy. Yet it does all the same. It becomes, as I mentioned before, in some ways it becomes more human than the actual humans.
So again, it is. Could almost say that the ultimate question of Frankenstein is, what is it that makes us human?
Yeah.
And I would say that's probably a theme. If you look at Metropolis, again, that's a similar theme with the robot.
Yep.
I think anime, so Astro Boy, a lot of these things like that is a recurring theme.
Yeah. It's pretty powerful. It's, I think... Yes, the question about what makes us human, by coincidence, I just watched the new James Gunn Superman film.
Yeah.
It sounds like a tangent, but don't worry, it makes sense. The monologue from Superman at the end is when Lex Luthor's been defeated. Lex Luthor says, but you're just an alien. And he says, this is where you're wrong.
I am human because of all the things that I do. And to paraphrase and sum it up, I make mistakes, I'm imperfect, I'm also human. I'm actually human.
Yeah.
Even though I was sent here to rule you, that doesn't matter. My choices define who I am.
Yeah.
So these ideas weren't invented by Mary Shelley by any means.
No.
But it's everywhere. We're constantly asking these questions of ourselves, it seems. And maybe that's one of the reasons why the text is so timeless.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That's I was going to mention RoboCop.
Yeah, well, the ultimate, isn't it? I mean, and there's definitely, Verhoeven has said there's some direct religious references there. The idea that he dies, is reborn, he walks on water in the film. He said openly, is it just no, I did that intentionally. That was absolutely there. He is a Christ-like figure. Yeah, he doesn't shy away from that, which I can definitely respect.
And is, again, constantly reminded of his humanity, of his former humanity through the flashbacks. And that's what makes...
Even visits his old home.
Yeah, and that's a wonderful moment in the film.
Pretty powerful stuff. And what can be written off as just this violent B-movie with nothing to say. Obviously, you weren't paying attention. If that's, But the same was said of Frankenstein. It's too horrific. You're killing kids. What's wrong with you, James Whalen, Universal?
But I think that's one of the beauties of horror, and one of the beauties of probably being a B-grade film. I don't like using A-grade, B-grade, but B-grade films, you can slip a lot more in there, or they can slip a lot more sort of deeper philosophical questions underneath this sort of facade of
simplicity,
and schlock.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think that's why you get great directors starting off in horror, doing these things.
Yeah, because they want something to say. I mean, there are derivative direct horror films that don't ask any questions to the audience, of course. But just to clarify on the A and B thing too, we should mention. I generally think of B movie in the original intention, which when you go back to early Hollywood, A movie simply meant bigger budget. That's all. It wasn't. It wasn't. It's better or worse. And it depends on your time in context. Sometimes it's used as a derivative sort of...
Well, also when they were during the drive-in era, they would generally show double features. People would turn up sometime during the B movie. So that would be the movie that they would show first, and then they would show the big budget Hollywood film.
Yeah.
So the B movie was the cheaper one. Doesn't say anything about quality.
No, not at all. No.
Roger Corman was the master of the B movie.
Yes.
And the number of actors and directors he found, I mean, excluding, Martin Scorsese, Jack Nicholson, just heaps of them.
Yes.
Ron Howard is another one.
Oh, that's right. He was too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Geez, so, he directed a film for Roger Corman, if I remember correctly.
The Fast and the Furious.
Oh, was that the one? Yeah, geez. Yeah. Okay, well, there you go.
Yeah. But Roger Corman would make these, I'd say B-grade films, which are cheaper, but almost always made money. So, because of the way he made them.
Yeah, and he generally tried to say something, especially in the 60s. This might be an appropriate time to jump ahead a little bit here too. Yeah, in the 60s, he was really making films that said something, like The Trip, and his movies about psychedelic and hippie. They inspired movies like Easy Rider. He nearly got involved in Easy Rider and ultimately turned it down, which he did regret. But having said that, the half of the creative team were mentally unstable and threatened people with violence in meetings, so probably fair to say no to somebody like that.